Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello. Ooh, I like
We're
this.
done. See you later.
Bye. Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jensen. This is Sharif. We're part of the Rovo product team. Specifically, our bread and butter is more on the agent side. So we're going to dive into that today. We're really, really excited to share what we've been working on. We've been geeking out on this for a little over a year now. Kind of started as a little bit of a hack, and then look at us now. So really excited to walk through it. We're really confident that this is the beginning of the future of teamwork. So let's start by recapping what Rovo is. And as we talked about in the keynote this morning, there's 8 main features and 3 pillars of Rovo. So you've got your find pillar, your learned pillar, and your act pillar. And within that, you have a bunch of different features that support those existing pillars. So we're going to focus today, though, on agents, both out-of-the-box agents and custom agents, and how you can build those yourself. We strongly believe that this is the future. So taking these human and the AI teammates and having them work together in a seamless fashion to make sure that people are being able to add them to their workflows, to their day-to-day activities, and they're really supporting them in a very natural way. So when you trial or purchase Rovo, we give you 20 out-of-the-box agents, and we also have available 15 ecosystem available agents in the marketplace that you can install yourself. And so these agents are common use cases across any organization or industry, and they provide inspiration for what is possible within these agents you can build yourself. So when you don't stop there at those 20 agents. The idea of this exact breakout session is to dive into how you can build agents specific for your use case, and they're endless, right? So the thing about agents is you can build anything you want, right? Like any use case is possible, and so you really need to dive into what you're trying to accomplish and what you want to achieve with these workflows. So there's 2 ways to build custom agents. You can build them with code through the Forge marketplace, or you can build them with no code. So why would you build them with code? So we have third-place marketplace developers. So we have a bunch of marketplace partners here today that would probably talk you through a lot of the agents they've been building. And these allow you to do things outside of the Atlassian ecosystem, or the product. So for example, the Canva agent can go draft you those presentations and those slides that you need and bring that into your experience without having to leave Atlassian. We have Atlassian solutions partners that also can build these agents on your behalf for like an enterprise, so you can work with them to build these within Forge. And we also have advanced internal use cases. So if you, for example, have a system where you guys are holding and storing your data. So this morning, Anu talked about our Customer 360 agent. That is an agent we built with code using Forge that solves our internal use cases, pulling in all of our customer information directly that way. If you want to learn more about that, we're not diving into code in this presentation, but you can go through a lot of our resources, and we can provide those to you after this call as well. And then no code. So this is where we're going to dive into today. So the things that we give you with these no-code agents is we give you guided prompting assistance. Anyone can build an agent. That's something we feel very passionate about. We didn't want to provide any sort of restrictions around that. We want any user at a company to be able to solve their use case without putting it behind sort of the walls of admin experiences, right? And then these are easily shareable. So I can create an agent that goes and it helps solve my use case, and then I can share it with a bunch of people on my team, and then they can utilize it as well. So we really want to make this sort of an open source experience so that everybody has access to it.
All right, let's jump into what we're going to dive deep into today. We'll give you a very quick overview about the what and the why of agents. And then we'll spend like a tour of all the places in Atlassian's portfolio where you can use agents. Where do they appear in the UI? So when I build this thing, where can I use it? And we will spend most of our time walking through a complete guide on how to create agents. This is where we'll spend most of the time, and this is where I think most of you will spend your times as you're instructing your agents on how to do things. But before we begin, it's important to talk about trust and privacy as anything with AI. We wanted to highlight a few things to talk about agents specifically today about that topic. So first of all our agents have profiles like a user profile inside your Confluence or in your Jira. And that's because we want them to be as transparent as possible. With AI, it's incredibly important that everything is transparent so you can understand what it's doing for safety reasons, but you can also understand what it's doing so you can copy and learn from it. I don't know about any Confluence old-timers here that have used Confluence for like 5 to 10 years? Right, the wiki markup days. You used to inspect someone's page and go, oh, that's how they did that. I'm now going to copy that and do it with me. So the same thing applies with agents. Jensen, I've copied a ton of Jensen's agents and forked them and changed them, and she's copied some of mine, and vice versa. And that's how we'll all get better learning how to educate ourselves in AI. Second thing that's most important to call out is we do not train any models or anything based on the data that you enter in an agent, or for that matter, Atlassian intelligence in general. So we cannot repeat that message enough. And thirdly, agents respect the permissions of the caller. So if I ask an agent to do something for me, and Jensen asks the agent to do something else, we'll probably get different results, because Jensen has different permissions to content than I do. And lastly, the human is always in the loop. Agents will not do any action without your approval, or if you're a space, Confluence space, or a Jira project administrator, you can have the access to put agents in automation, which requires elevated privileges in the first place as well. All right, so what are agents? I'll breeze through this, but just to level set everyone at the same page. Agents have goals. You have to tell them exactly what they're supposed to do, what they're created for. You can give them character and personality. And this is really good, because every company and every team has their own culture. You want to be formal, you want to be casual. Maybe you want an agent to be very succinct and straight to the point, or maybe you want an agent to be creative and exploratory and give you ideas. This is where you can give it instructions for its character. Agents, think of the agent's brain as its knowledge. So you can give the agent one Confluence page as its brain, or you can give it all of your teamwork graph, Jira and Confluence, or all the third-party data that you have indexed in Rovo, such as SharePoint or Google Drive or that kind of stuff. The last thing to know about agents is they can take action. Think of this as their hands and their feet. Like, what can they actually do? Can they create an issue? Can they create a page? Can they submit a pull request? All that kind of stuff. So goals, character, knowledge, and action. Second thing we want to share with you is just a little bit of the why agents. Why are agents worth your time? Jensen and I have seen a lot of agents being created, and we've created a lot ourselves. And during the beta period, we spoke to a lot of customers that created agents. And we bucket them down into two broad areas. There is a whole class of agents that will save you hours of time. Maybe going from 0 to 1 in a draft or something, or analyzing a large quantity of data. You're really getting a lot of time savings. And then we discovered a whole other class of agents that's really around enforcing a standard or a quality or a process. Maybe your company has a framework. Every Jira issue has to have these specific criteria. Or when you create a release checklist in Confluence, it has to have these 4 things done. So there's a whole bunch of agents that are really good for enforcing quality, processes, procedures, and that kind of thing. So some examples. The examples we'll go through here are ones that we ship out of the box. Jensen and I and some of the team here had a lot of fun creating a wide variety of agents just to get your juices flowing and give you ideas of what you can create. The Jira Theme Analyzer got demoed this morning, analyzes a list of Jira issues and groups them into common themes. So massive time saver for customer feedback, maybe your Jira Service Management project and you're trying to analyze help desk ticket trends and that kind of stuff. Transcripts Insights agent. I used this the other week. I just finished a customer call. I had my meeting notes, my Zoom meeting transcript. And the next thing I do is try to write my takeaways from the meeting for the team. That usually takes about an hour for an hour meeting. We have this agent, and the prompt's open source. You can go try it out. Hey, summarize this meeting for me and create me some insights. And it creates it in the format, and I just tweak it here and there. Got a few things right, got a few things wrong, and I can share it with my team. It saves me an hour every time I use that agent. Release notes. Most of you generate release notes from Jira. That's also available in an agent as well. What about some quality agents or agents that follow a framework, a process, or a procedure? We have the OKR generator. If you don't know what OKRs are, objectives and key results. It's a goal-setting framework. That's one that follows a framework. Now, these agents are really good when you give them a framework and then say, critique this text for this framework. That's just a general good use of AI. AI is good at understanding and reading text. It can read and apply and reason with that. Decision Director follows a decision framework called DAISY or RACY. You might be familiar with either of those. It can read a Confluence page that's following that format and tell you what you're missing, or you need to fill out these sections, or find you better suggestions to improve it. And the last example here is a bug triager agent. A software team has bugs coming in. They want to make sure every bug has the right steps to reproduce, maybe a browser version, whatever. You can create your own agent, or fork this one, or use this one, to do that for you and improve the quality of the bugs coming in. So hopefully it gives you a few ideas of that. The team from Procore who are here today, Naomi, and as many of you others that have been involved during the beta beta phase of Rovo. Thank you so much. They helped us, gave us lots of feedback on making Rovo work great for you guys. So they've seen a massive reduction in the time they spend doing roadmaps and a few other things as well. So we can't wait to hear your stories. So if you have used it or whatever, grab Jensen or myself or someone from the team. They're really encouraging to the team. So how do we go about building them? Over to you, Jensen.
Yeah, so we're just going to walk through a specific end-to-end demo that just walks you through the main things that you need to do to build an out-of-the-box agent, and then we'll dive into each of the details on those tips and tricks. So to start to create an agent, it's really simple. You just go into the Rovo chat UI, you click Create an Agent, and we start you through this natural language flow. So the reason we built this specific experience is to sort of help you get started, right? You don't have to go through the natural language flow, but maybe you have a general idea and you don't really know how to get started, but you have this concept you want to do. This agent, this AI experience, it's a little bit meta, will help guide you through creating an agent, right? So if you want to skip that, you already know what you want to do, or you just got those ideas and you can now configure it yourself, you jump into the configuration side and you can update those instructions. You can give it conversation starters. So these are specifically those prompts that show up when you click on that agent and invite it to the chat. It will help guide your end users to click the right prompts to take them through that experience and give them ideas of how this agent can help you. We also allow you to select the knowledge. So again, we talked a lot about the breadth of data or the specific if you want to go more in depth. So depending on the agent you're creating, you might want to have access to everything or very specific documents. So for Brand Guardian, I want it to be analyzing itself against our brand guidelines. So I'm going to go to very specific knowledge. You can also, again, add third-party sources. So if you wanted to add Google Drive or SharePoint or any of the connectors we're building as well and launching soon, you can add those to your agents. Lastly, you add these actions. So we have quite a few, I think 20+ actions available now, and we're building a ton more. And these are the actual skills, again, that your agent has access to do in that chat interface. And again, we're going to dive deep into all of these tips specifically. So essentially, you create this profile, and then you can utilize it in a bunch of different experiences. So in this example, this is what Zainab showed this morning in the keynote. You can analyze copy that you have in Confluence pages, right? So I'm in the editor experience. I've highlighted some text, and I've asked it to analyze it against my guidelines, and it can give me feedback and direction based on my copy. So that's one way, right? So they can write with you. They can help you generate content. They can help you edit content. So in this editor experience, you can bring in agents inside. And then it also can chat with it, right? So I can invite it into this right rail experience, or we also have full screen, and you can ask questions, you can draft content, you can do actions, you can do all of this from this sort of assistant side panel. And then lastly, this is Sharif and my favorite, is automations, right? So why would you even, if you don't need to chat with it all the time and draft these things, so for example, Sharif has that transcript he was talking about, he had that customer call, why not automate that process? So anytime a transcript is published or a call happens, you can have it automatically generate those insights for you. So now he's gone from an hour of time to 5 minutes of time to actually 0, right? And so he can automate that whole process.
All right, let's jump into the tips for building your agent. Now, these slides are content dense because a lot of agents is just text. So all the slides will be available. So, and don't stress too much about reading every word on the slide, but me and Jensen have spent a bit of time creating these slides so they're referenceable. So you can use them at your desk at work, you can reference them, and you don't need to go through those details again. And so let's go through the writing instructions. So this box here, this is where you will spend most of your time. By the way, you can make that box a bit bigger. We'll improve that design so it's a bit bigger for you. But you'll spend most of your time writing instructions for the agent there. All right. Let's jump into it. The first thing to be aware of with agent is any general knowledge that you might have, nothing to do with Atlassian, nothing to do with Rovo, about prompt engineering will help you. I would probably recommend that to everyone that has a desk job. We should all start learning about prompt engineering in general. But general good principles of prompt engineering, they're available out there on the web. ChatGPT has a great guide for prompt engineering. Microsoft has a great one on Copilot. We have some on our website. Google has some. They're all just generally available. So anything you can learn about prompting a large language model prompt is good to know. Jensen and I have picked the ones that we think are most applicable to agents here, and just to walk through some highlights. When you create an agent, a good framework to have in your head is persona, goal, context, format. Persona, goal, context, format. Persona, tell the agent what it is, and sometimes it's actually good telling it what it isn't if there's something that's close by. Like you're a project manager, you're not a product manager, and you don't do these things, but you do these things. Agents respond really well to that stuff. The goal, tell them what they are created to do. You're created to do this. Now, Jensen and I, you'll see in all the demos we do, we generally recommend creating an agent for a narrow task. The broader you try to make your agent, the more chances are it'll get things wrong. So start with baby steps, start with one task, and keep adding things as you feel comfortable until you'll know the limits that you've reached. And then the context. When you are asked to do something, or someone will ask you to do this, or in this situation, I need you to do that. Give it the context, and then the format. Do this, and then respond in a table, or keep your answer short, or whatever it is you want to tell it. I talked about earlier, tell the agent what it is and what it isn't. Relating it to human roles is actually a good thing to do. So if you can think of the job title, whatever, it understands that. That's its general knowledge, so it knows that. So you can use things there. I often find my first version of the agent, I don't know about you, Jensen, I'm quite verbose. Like I write a lot of sentences, and then I end up trying to clean it up and simplify it. You often find when you write your first agent and you've written quite a few sentences, it'll run and sometimes you'll get some things wrong. But as you make it more succinct and straight to the point, it runs a lot better. And so first version, you might write a few sentences, and the second version, you want to be very specific. For this goal, I want you to do this first, then do this, and then do that kind of stuff. And then where applicable, give examples. Agents love examples. There's a fancy term for it in the industry called like few-shot examples. It just means just give it one or two examples. A fun agent we did the other day was, this isn't scripted, but it just popped in my head, the How to Speak Australian agent. And so we're like, hey, Australian level 1 is someone saying, g'day. And Australian level 2 is someone saying, how's it going? And Australian level 3 is, and so you gave it a few examples, and then you said, write me a sentence for Australian level 10. And it extrapolated. It was a funny sentence, but like, I'm not going to repeat it for you, not to embarrass myself. Maybe at the party tonight, come see me later. But it can extrapolate from the examples you give it. So the good tip is give it a couple of examples, and it can follow along. All right, what specific knowledge do you need to know about when you're creating a Rovo agent? Well, you need to know what access to data that this agent has what it can read. So again, these slides are text-heavy, but we want to give you the breadth of things. In Jira, you can read 25 out-of-the-box fields. You can search issues via natural language, find issues that were due next week in this project. You can find links about issues. You can read the backlog view. So if you've got the agent there and your backlog view is there, you can tell it, from this backlog, can you blah, 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 and it knows this is the, I don't know why I'm using my hands, but you can get the idea. You know this part of the screen? You know what I'm talking about, right? Same thing with Confluence. It can read pages and blogs. It can read the comments there. Really cool thing to know. Someone created an agent the other day to summarize what's changed in the page history. So you can tell Confluence, hey, from the page history, read the last 5 changes, and tell me what was specifically changed by this person, that kind of thing. At the moment, you can't read the whiteboard contents, but you can read whiteboard metadata. And Jensen and myself have got a big backlog to support all the other content types in Confluence and databases too, looking at some database fans. And you can also ask it questions and answers about specific pages. On this page, did someone do this? Rovo will continue to support more and more products as you grow. So Compass is on the list, Bitbucket, and so forth. Now, across all products, there are a set of common things to be aware of. It doesn't matter which product you're in. You can just ask it a question, and the answer will come from all the connected data sources. So it doesn't matter what you're in there, that'll be available. You can also get access to recent user activity in Jira and Confluence. So tell me the thing that Dougal did last week that was about blah, blah, blah. It knows that and knows if I have access to that content, I can see it. You can ask questions about people, user profile information. You can even ask it to show someone's avatar as well. And you have access to the Atlassian home projects and goals, so you can read those details. And when you paste a link to something using a smart link, it can read the metadata about that link as well. Again, reference slide for you there. Reminder, it always respects your permissions. OK, these now will go. I'll go into a few tips. We tried to pick 8, I think, tips that we think we saw a lot of people, including ourselves, use multiple times. First tip, remember agents can write in Markdown format. If you don't know what Markdown format is, it's a simple syntax to try to format text. So you can ask it to, hey, read the results of the page, summarize your findings in a table. It understands that. Use emoji to give me a traffic light signal. So there's an example of a prompt there, and that's the results. So this example here is an out-of-the-box agent. It's the decision director, so it reads a page, checks the framework, and then scores the page on the framework. This is a green light, this is a red light, etc. And we've told it to mark it down, return its response in Markdown tables. So you can do that. So you can do bold, italic. So tell it how to format its results should be your takeaway. The next step is you can actually embed forms for user input. If you're here, you're probably a Office 365 customer or a Google Workspace customer, and you probably use Microsoft Forms or Google Forms. You can embed them inside your prompts and tell an agent to ask the user to fill out this form. And when you do that, it looks something like this. So you can say, I think we shipped this in the decision director and a few others. Yeah. So you can say, hey, I've answered your questions a few times. Tell me, how do you think I'm going? Or you can use it to capture input. It'll embed the form in line, and then you can do whatever you like with that form. The third tip is to think about where your agent's going to be used if you're planning to use it outside Atlassian's products. Why do I say that? Because you'll find every vendor requires a different format for how the content renders if you're planning to render any rich content. For example, if you have an agent and you want to post its results to Microsoft Teams, do something in Jira and Confluence, post the result in Microsoft Teams or Slack, they both have different syntax for how to format rich text. So this is an example here. Again, we've shipped this agent out of the box. But this one uses Slack's Markdown. And so I had to explain to it, OK, this is the syntax to use for bold. This is to use for italic. And here are some examples. I talked about few-shot examples earlier. Format it this way, et cetera. And so I've then taken that agent, and I've put it in an automation rule. So every week, this agent runs, reads a bunch of issues, summarizes them, and then posts to Slack at the end. And it looks like that. But that's very specific to Slack's formatting. Does that make sense? So I had to tell the agent, because I know I'm going to use this agent in Slack, so I have to tell it to spit its output using Slack's format, not Microsoft Teams format. Also, general tip here, they actually know if you say like Slack's formatting or Microsoft Teams formatting, they actually know what that is because there's so much content the large language model was trained on anyway from its just general knowledge. So if the content's readily available, it probably knows what that is there. Next tip is you can ask the agent to remember things. Now, this sounds really fancy, but it's not super fancy, but it's handy. It remembers things for the chat conversation. So as an example, we shipped a teamwork quiz agent in Rovo. So you can say, I'm new to a squad. We change squads all the time. Let's play a get-to-know-you game with my team members. And it looks at the recent activity and then plays a guess the right answer kind of game, right? And so you can do, for every right answer, give them 1 point. For every wrong answer, take away a point. Give them bonus points every third round. So it remembers that for the thread of the conversation. So the takeaway here is that you can tell an agent to remember something during the conversation and then reference back to it during that time. So this example here is a bit hard to read, but it's the teamwork trivia agent. But as you chat to it, you can go back and forth and make it a bit of a quiz and remember things and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's important to remember it's not training the agent on that, right? So again, those answers that user's given the agent is not being stored, it's not being trained on, it's not using anywhere else, it's just for that conversation thread.
Yeah, good
right?
call.
And then when you start a new conversation, then it doesn't remember that part. So don't worry, we're not storing or training on it.
Yeah. Next tip, I love coming to a good home and seeing a really welcome mat at the front. It makes me feel welcome. But we noticed a lot of customers, when you open up an agent, the first thing they type is, what can you do? Or like, what do you do? Or something like that. So it's handy to tell the agent, when someone asks you, what do you do? Give them some ideas. So think about your user, that's who's going to use the agent. Sometimes it might not be you. And what would they ask? And what are some use cases I can give them? So you'll notice almost all the agents we ship out of the box have this welcome mat pattern to try to give you a welcome mat. And so someone opens the agent and says, what do you do? And it's like, here are some ideas. Pro tip, you can tell the agent to improvise on use cases about this topic. So it gives you different ideas every time on how to use it. That's just the large language model, so it can do that as well. Sometimes you want agents to not say anything. Why would you want that? Why would you want an agent not say anything? So sometimes you want an agent to give you suggestions on something, and sometimes you're like, if you don't have anything to say, please don't say it. Like I always said, please, just in case one day AI comes back, But anyway. And so let me give you an example of that. So we have bundled in Rovo a bug triager agent. So what does it do? A new ticket, follow me in the flowchart here on the right. A new ticket comes in. If the ticket is a bug, I want to read it, and I want to make sure it has the appropriate steps to reproduce. So I'm checking Jira tickets follow a specific format. We talk about agents applying quality controls. And then if you have something to say about it, comment on the ticket and tell the person who reported the bug to fix these things, if that makes sense. But if you don't have anything, just don't comment. Like, I don't want the notification. So in this example, I've told the agent in my prompt here, if you follow the blue column, hey, please, if you have nothing to say, just say no response. And then in the automation rule, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, all I'm doing is, in automation, you can tell it, check the answer the agent says. If they say no response, then don't do anything. If they say something else, then write the comment on the page. So you're instructing the agent step by step based on what it says. Following along, makes good. OK, and that's what it looks like there. So that in this example, it did have a suggestion. This was a bad bug report. So it's commented on the Jira ticket and said, hey, you should fix a few things in the bug report. The next tip is you can tell the agent to follow a template. Give it a template, give it a format, a structure, like this example here. This is a requirements agent. So I'm going to use it in the editor. I'm going to say, hey, generate me a product requirements document for this Atlassian home goal. And I've just pasted a link to a goal. The Atlassian goals that you heard about this morning. It generates the template, but then gets the context of the goal and populates that for me. So as a product manager, it's sped up the process for me to create a requirements document. So it's much quicker to create those requirements documents. And there you go, I can insert it.
I used the product requirements agent last week, and I wrote 6 product specs in 10 minutes. And I just put a description, and it knew all of the context of what I was writing a product spec about because Confluence already has the data. So it's not like it hallucinated it. Like, it actually just searched, because all my stuff is Rovo-based, right? I was like, write me a spec for adding more actions to Rovo, and I gave it 5, and then it wrote me a whole plan, and it saved me so much time.
Here I am, and I thought Jensen worked hard and late.
And
night.
I don't, yeah.
Now she's confessing that, OK, humans always take credit for robots. It happens every time. All right, the next step is to, you can guide the user and make your step process interactive. So if you'd like to make the agent more interactive, just tell it, stop, wait for this thing, then ask for this thing, and then do that. Now, why would you want to do that? This tip is really good if you really want to make sure the inputs you've collected from the user are reliable and predictable. So for example, when we created the release notes agent, we told it step 1 is your first goal is to work out the JQL query to run this for. To do this, ask them for their Jira project. Don't proceed till you know their Jira project. Or ask them to paste in a link. Don't proceed, et cetera. And so you can kind of step through the process. So what does it look like here? I am in the Confluence editor, and I want to start generating my release notes. I'll select the release notes agent, pull it up, and then I'm going to ask it to generate release notes for this link, and I've pasted it. Now, I've told this agent, don't generate release notes straight away. First, confirm the JQL is correct with the user, then proceed. Why do you do this? Because I want to make sure it's very reliable, so that you can correct it if we got something wrong. Again, AI gets things wrong sometimes, so you need to make sure you do that. So you may want to use confirmation prompts as a pattern to confirm with the user when you're taking input from them, if that makes sense. And then it generates the release notes for me. This is actually one of the Rovo teams. Do you know the Vespera team? I actually didn't know. Do you know the name behind Vespera? No.
Of which one?
The Vespera team, Mark's team?
I don't.
OK. That was going that way. I just wanted to see if she knew that. But yeah, that's one of our Rovo team's release notes there for some of the stuff they worked on. And you can put that in the editor. All right. Things will go wrong. You'll create an agent sometimes, and you'll be like, wait, why did it do that? It didn't do what I wanted it to do. And then Jensen and I's history is just a bunch of counseling to each other when agents do things wrong. Or it's a bunch of wow moments. It's like, oh, check this out. This is really cool. So when you look at our chat history, that's pretty much all we've been talking about for the last year. When things go wrong, what do? You'll find over time your prompt will get quite big. What do you do when you have a really meaty problem in real life? You try to break it down into smaller problems. So my first tip is to try to break down your instruction prompt into smaller chunks. And how can you test that? Just copy bits of the prompt and just open up Rovo chat, not an agent, and just test sections of the prompt. Make sure each section kind of works as it does. And then kind of piece them back together, and you'll quickly work out where the problem is. Often I found when I've had to do this, it's because I've repeated myself multiple times, or I've confused it, and I haven't really been succinct with my answers. But breaking it down into smaller chunks really pays off. The second thing is, anyone here have children? OK, when your kids do something, and you're like, why did you do that? What was going through your mind? Talk to an AI like a child. So sometimes it'll spit something out. When I was creating the release notes agent, it would spit something out. I'm like, where did you get that from? So you just say, why did you do that? And it'll be like, oh, I did it because I found this thing, blah, blah. So I'm like, OK, cool. So I'll tell you next time not to do that. So next time, if you run into this situation, don't do that. You can also tell it, hey, why did you do that? And if it confesses and tells you what it's done wrong, you'd be like, what do I have to tell you next time so you don't do it again? See, I told you it's just like talking to children. It'll sometimes be useful. It'll say, oh, next time if you're going to instruct me, I suggest using these prompts instead of these prompts. And it will do that. So try that. So ask it when it gets something wrong, how did you get to that conclusion? Why did you do that? And what can we do next time to make it better? Just like you would with your kids. OK, the last step here is if you're doing a fairly complicated agent that you plan to use in automation, test it in chat first. So all the agents that we've showed you first, such as the release notes agent, the bug triage agent, make sure it works for just one bug, or make sure it works just on the page you're currently on. Test it, make sure it works, whatever, et cetera. Then go to automation, and then add the agent to the automation rule and do that. So break it down. Don't forget to ask it why. Ask it, what should I tell you next time so you don't do that again? And test it in chat first.
Cool, sweet. So next, let's talk about knowledge, right? So we talked about what you're giving it, the instructions, the character, the goals, but now we need to think about what it has access to, like what's part of its brain. So when you're setting up knowledge, I talked about this earlier, but you're essentially given a list of sources, right? You can say, hey, I want to acknowledge all of my data, or I want specific data. So there's two things to think about, right? So if you don't toggle it and you say, don't only reference these sources, that means you're looking at everything. So when you're talking to chat specifically without an agent, you have access to all of your organization's knowledge. And so we do that as the default experience for agents out of the box as well. So if you say this is good for use cases where you're trying to find documentation across a company, maybe I have an onboarding agent and they're trying to help me find resources. And so I'll specifically say, OK, well, if somebody asks you a question about this, go find that knowledge in this database, either in Confluence or Google Drive or Figma or SharePoint or whatever your third-party connectors are. So it has access to all one-party products that we support, as well as any third-party connectors you've connected through Rovo. So whatever you've done in that instance. And then the next one is custom knowledge. So again, we just talked about an onboarding agent. But what if I made an onboarding agent for the Rovo product team? And I said, OK, I'm bringing on somebody new. I'm their onboarding buddy, and I want them to go talk to this agent before they talk to me. Right? I need a little break. And so what it will do is it will go down. I'll basically say, look at the Rovo space, look at the Rovo project, and look at this Rovo Slack channel or something. So I'll specifically say, only look in these places, and that will narrow that knowledge down, which will give me much more accurate answers for this use case, right? So you really need to decide what the purpose is, and then make that decision there. And another tip is, as you know, LLMs are trained at a core, right? And so it has knowledge to general knowledge. And so if you want this specific agent to not even look at what it's trained on in the LLM specifically, you can call that out in your instructions prompt. And you say, hey, only use knowledge you have access to. Don't use general knowledge or external knowledge. And it will narrow that down as well in your answers. So the next thing you have is actions. So again, these are the skills, the abilities your agent has. So you can go ahead and you can grab from a list of actions. You select what you want your agent to do. The most important tip here is be very specific about what the purpose is. Don't add 50 actions. Add 5. Say, hey, this is the goal of this agent. I need it to create pages, and I need it to comment on pages, and maybe I need it to do one other thing, like add labels or edit a table or whatever it may be. And you go ahead and you select those actions and be very specific. Why don't you want to add 50, 100 actions? You want it to be much more accurate. You want it to be specific. We route all the actions through a framework, and if you add 100, it's going to confuse the agent. So be specific. Now, when you configure these, we give you a list of Jira, of Confluence. We're adding a ton of actions, so both first-party ones, and then we're going to add third-party actions as well. Eventually, we'll add Forge actions through the marketplace, and these allow you to be very custom. So the important thing is these are actions you use in the chat experience. There is always a confirm button. We never do anything without you saying, hey, this is correct. Like, I like your response. I like what you've given me. You click confirm. It gives you a link to that page. Now, the next thing is a little bit more complex.
Right. So Jensen showed you why you would configure actions when you're in the Rovo agents. The other place you can configure actions is inside your automation room. So let's just contrast why you choose one over the other. So you want to choose the automation rule if you want to embed the agent in a repeatable workflow. right? So if you're not just planning it to use it just in chat or inside the editor or in Jira editor or on the sidebar, and you want to do it in a repeatable workflow, you should create your actions inside automation. You don't need to create it inside the UI. Or you could do it in both, actually. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's probably why you would do that. Now, when you put an agent inside automation, it works asynchronously, meaning that someone doesn't have to manually trigger it every time. It'll happen in the background. Now, the important thing to note is that this is an automation feature, is that automation is only available to your Confluence space and your Jira project admins. So your space or project admin will have to be the person who goes in and sets that up, because it can get a little bit complicated sometimes, and that's something to be aware of there. So let me go through some examples of setting up actions inside Atlassian automation. So first thing is, when can the agent wake up? Or when does it get triggered? You have 3 broad things to choose from. Now, automation will give you so much ideas when you play with automation UI. When you play with it, you're like, oh, there's so much stuff I could do. First thing you can do is make the agent do something at a specific date or time, or a regular occurrence every week or every Thursday or every when that happens. The second trigger could be when something happens. When someone pastes a link to a Zoom thing in the Confluence page, then transcribe it for me and do blah, 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 blah. When someone creates a Jira issue, then do this. Or when the issue type is a bug. Or when someone marks a version as complete in Jira. Or when a sprint is complete. So you have lots of actions. You have over 100 actions to choose from, triggers, sorry, not actions, for when the agent does something. So you've got lots there. And then as a probably lesser known feature inside automation is that you can also configure an automation to be manually triggered via the UI. So in Jira and Confluence, there's a little zap icon up the top right of a page or issue. This allows your end users to manually run that automation rule. And so you can tell its agent, in Atlassian automation, you can tell it to be triggered manually as an option, which means that the user can trigger it anytime they want from the UI there on a Jira issue or a Confluence page.
I think what's cool about that, too, though, is the form, right?
Oh,
like you explored
want to talk about that?
Yeah, so like on the plane, you figured this one out. But when you click that button, you can also populate a form that collects smart values. And then you can take those smart values, and you can put that inside of the prompt to the agent. And so you're taking user input, putting it into the agent prompt, and then getting a response that way. And so you can make it extremely custom, and that's my favorite part.
So example, one of the agents we ship is a translation agent. It can take a Confluence page and create child pages in different languages. Let's say you wanted the user to choose the languages first, and you wanted the user to be able to trigger the agent. So you can put the agent in the automation rule, say it's triggered manually, and then give it a bunch of radio buttons. Tick for French, tick for German, tick for Spanish, whatever. And you pass those things as instructions to the agent. So the user kind of fills out a form, and it kind of gets passed to the agent. So you've got lots of things you can do there. With Atlassian automation, you have access to over 100 actions. Let's go through let's go through 3 examples. Very simple automation example. This example here is on a specific time schedule. Then I want the agent to wake up, analyze all the issues, and summarize them or group them into themes for me, and then post it in my Teams, in my Microsoft Teams or my Slack room. Very simple 3-step agent. That's kind of cool to know. Now, Atlassian automation also has this idea of branching conditions, if then, as well as for loops. And they also let you read the agent response, and you can do stuff with it. You can split it, you can inspect it, you can do that. So let's do a more advanced example. So this example is our bug triage agent. So when a new issue is created, check to see if it's a bug. And if it is, wake up the bug triage agent. I don't know why they're always asleep for some reason. And then you can read the contents of it. If the contents of the agent response has this, then do that. If the contents of the agent response has that, then do something else. So you can start to condition and do things. You could even tell it, when this happens, then get another agent, and you can start to chain these agents to do things together. So you can go pretty crazy with automation. One more visual example we'll walk through together is the translations agent that we ship out of the box. But it's a simple agent, but it shows you the power of Atlassian automation. So I want to walk through this step by step. So imagine I've got a Confluence page here, and we're about to announce something. And my team has agreed as part of our workflow is when we add the translate label, the agent will come in and create the first draft of translations for this press release or this announcement that we're going to make with customers. So first thing is the trigger is, hey, when the page is created, and it's labeled translate, then I want you to use this Rovo agent called the translation agent. And you notice I pass it here, the string, convert this page into French, and you can give it the URL. So you can do that. And so what happens here is then publish a new page and put the contents of the results from the agent as a page. So you'll notice here it's created one child page for each language, because in the proper rule, I've chained multiple languages together. So it goes through and creates copies for that. Don't forget, you can also do cross-product stuff. So once you've done that, let's tell our team to come in and review the agent's work, because we want to make sure that everyone, make mistakes, so we want to make sure it's right. So let's now create a ticket in our team's backlog to review the agent's work and reference those Confluence pages that the agent's just created in the Jira ticket. So you're kind of like mixing and matching and putting them all together. You could also send an email or all the kind of stuff that's available to you in Atlassian Automation. So hopefully you're now getting a feel of why Jensen and I get really excited when we talk about agents. There's a lot of cool. It feels like you've just got 100 Lego pieces to play with now, and you can go for your life and see what's available there. So that is hopefully, what's this talk called? The ultimate guide to agents. Hopefully you feel like you have the best guide to agents and you've inspired with lots of ideas. We've covered what are agents and why you should do them. We've given you different places you can invoke the agents, from chat in the editor in Jira and Confluence to the sidebar to Atlassian automation rules or whatever. And there's lots of examples of prompting an agent and how to use actions as well. This slide deck will be available for referenceability. Don't forget all the agents you get in Rovo. You can inspect them and read their prompts. And have fun. Me and Jensen have had a blast the last year.
Made quite a few agents.
We've made a lot of agents, and it's been a lot of fun. So hopefully you can have as much fun as we have. So happy agenting.
Happy agenting.
Agent
agenting?
creating.
Creating.
Yeah, thanks for coming, people.